Hey guys! Today, we are going to be taking a look into the past of what could have been for Miraculous, and more specifically, talking all about the PV version of Miraculous Ladybug. But as always, before we get into today's video, be sure to subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love. Now, let's get into it. By now, I'm sure many of us Miraculous fans at some point throughout our time of browsing through content have stumbled upon videos and photos such as these offering us a glimpse of what the series could have looked like in an anime form, and if you haven't already delved into the lore of it yourself, you might be surprised to know that originally, Adrien Agreste was never meant to exist, Felix was intended to be Cat Noir, and that there was even a whole curse. Back in 2012, a short 2D animated video was accidentally shared to the public that was created by Toei Animation, which you might know best for working on series like One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon. This video was created in hopes for the series to get the push it needed to become an anime. Ultimately, there were reasons why it never fell through, and one of them being because of Ladybug's design. Thomas even went as far as to change her suit multiple times while using less spots, but in the end, animators were struggling to make it work. Not only that, but Thomas has also gone to explain every now and then on Twitter that the dynamic between Felix and Marinette just wasn't right. Yeah, Felix and Marinette were going to be a thing, but as Thomas went to explain, nobody was convinced by their dynamic, including himself, hence why Adrien was created. So while Felix's character ended up being scrapped temporarily, it always amazes me that he was able to make a comeback in the CGI version, while also continuing to play a larger role throughout every season. Along with that, I also love whenever we get these quick glimpses of the PV version of Miraculous, in the version that we all know and love today. While Thomas had stated a while back that everything from the PV version had been discarded in terms of designs, plot, villains, and powers, I think it's safe to say that there still is some resemblance and representation every now and then, which again, I love to see. For example, during this one scene from the PV, where we get a glance at this stained glass wall, looking now at Gabriel's Season 5 design, there's definitely a resemblance between the two. Plus, some of Ladybug's scrap designs also share some similarities with her newer upgraded suit from Season 4. Speaking about character designs, I want to do an in-depth comparison on just a few of the designs from the past to the ones that we have today, starting with the character who'd gone through the least amount of changes, and that being Felix. Comparing the two side by side, we can see their outfits are identical, and even their face and hair, PV Felix just having his hair parted to the opposite side. With Marinette, however, while staying relatively the same, she did go through some changes. In the PV version, while she continues to wear her white t-shirt and gray blazer, her pants would go from shorts to pink jeans, and her hair into cleaner pigtails. Something that I would have personally loved to see carry on over from the PV version into the CGI was the little hair loop Marinette had on the top of her head, as I found how it would shape itself into a heart when she was around Felix to be really cute. Also, to this day, there are a lot of people who call this version of Marinette Bridget. However, as confirmed by Thomas himself, Bridget never existed. That name was created by fans to avoid confusing the PV version and CGI version of Marinette. Something I'd also found really interesting within the PV was how much darker Gabriel's character was going to look, along with the role this character was going to play. And no, this wasn't Emily. Through Tumblr, one user went to share some photos from the art book they had of the PV version, where it shared details such as Gabriel's originally intended name, which was Richard Sphinx. Also, notice how similar his PV design is to his new Season 5 look. And so, if this wasn't Emily, then who was this lady to his right? She was known as his secretary, who went by the name of Poker Face. She was capable of making everyone in the world emotionless, and she was in love with Richard, and/or Hawkmoth. Sounds pretty similar to someone else we know and love in the CGI. So if you're anything like me and love learning about lore, I'm sure you may be wondering what else has differed compared to now. And while one thing for sure was that Marinette seemed to have had a great interest in Felix and Cat Noir in Ladybug, the reasoning might be a bit surprising. Apparently, in the early writing stages, the power of the Black Cat Miraculous actually cursed its user, and in order to counter it, Ladybug would have been needed, and more particularly, Felix/Cat Noir needed to win over her heart. So now that we're all on the same page with what Miraculous could have been, what do you guys think? Personally, as someone who enjoys both anime and Miraculous, I definitely am happy with the series today. However, I also get that thought every now and then of what could have been different. One thing for sure is that it would have been able to touch on more darker topics in a more in-depth way if we were to have gotten the PV version, but I mean, as if we haven't already gone through some emotional damage. One of my personal favorite things about Miraculous is the themes and constant foreshadowing us viewers get to discover, and things like the rings, alliances, backstories, and the emotions we get to see from the characters have been amazing. And imagining the story we have now, but in the PV version, I'm sure I would have enjoyed too. There is actually a Miraculous Ladybug manga with currently 2 volumes out in Japanese, and while for the most part scenes and lines are relatively the same, there are parts every now and then that are slightly different. And lastly, let's look over some early art. Something I will never get tired of looking at is concept art for Miraculous. I mean, just look at how vibrant this all is. One that really caught my eye was of this with the Kwami Null, which, by the way, Null means to bind forces. Going back to the art book, in it explained that Null caused for Tiki and Plag to be stuck in pieces of jewelry, and that Null granted Richard and/or Gabriel insight into the future as the Kwamis themselves had a plan. There was also originally an idea for a different theme song for Miraculous, known as Here Comes Ladybug, which I've listened to countless times now, and I adore it. I have linked a video below where you can listen to it, and I highly suggest doing so. While there were many more phases Miraculous would go through during its transition to getting where it is today, each one is absolutely beautiful to see, and I'm just amazed to see where it is today. Next week, we have 2 brand new Season 5 episodes releasing from Gloob, Perfection and Emotion, both on the same day, November 21st at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And just a reminder that these are episodes 12 and 18, meaning that this season will no longer be airing in chronological order, and so this is just a little heads up that I will still be making videos on these episodes, so if you don't plan on watching them for yourself, I do recommend you stay away from my videos for the time being. And so as always, be sure to let me know your thoughts and theories down below, and subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love. And I'll see you guys in the next one.